of AlJazeera as well. The latest now from Jackie Rowland, who is in Brega in eastern Libya.
The events of the last few hours have provided a timely lesson against making predictions in the way this fighting is going to pan out. Over the last 48 hours, we saw the rebels making some significant gains here in the east, taking the town of Ras Lanuf and even looking at one stage as though they were going to take the town of Bin Jawad as well. That would have brought them within 200 kilometers of Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. However, during the night of Sunday to Monday, we saw the pro-Gaddafi forces fighting back, and at the moment it looks like the rebels could be routed from Ras Lanuf. It would appear that the pro-Gaddafi forces are sending a clear message that they will only allow the rebels to advance so close to Sirte and no further. They appear to be warning the rebels that if they want to try to advance on Sirte, they should be prepared to fight pretty much every kilometre of the way.
Yeah, and what it seems at the moment is that neither the rebels nor the pro-Gaddafi forces really have the upper hand, which begs the question, does either side have either the firepower or the will to win? Lawrence Lee looks at that.
Whatever the military capabilities of the opponents of Gaddafi's regime, they certainly don't lack spirit. This is the city of Misrata, which on Sunday morning the government in Tripoli said had been reclaimed by pro-Gaddafi forces. It certainly doesn't look like it now. By the end of Sunday, the government was trying to suggest something different, that they've made a conscious decision not to cause too much death and destruction.
One of the brigades took the repositioned and didn't want to engage in the fighting. And despite that, the locals managed to capture 37 of the militia groups.
Despite Gaddafi's obvious advantage of having aircraft and helicopters, one of the striking aspects of this conflict has been how inaccurate the bombing has been. While it's true that some weapons dumps have been destroyed, in many places the warplanes have continuously missed their targets, and now and again are even shot down by aging men who freely admit to having never manned an anti-aircraft gun in their entire life before this. It all raises intriguing questions. Are Gaddafi's pilots incapable of shooting straight? Are they missing targets on purpose? And if so, is it because they don't want to hit them, or is it because they're under orders to frighten rather than kill?
When we arrived, we didn't find any opposition because the people here are good. The people welcome us and greet us. But when we were inside, 2 Mirage planes overflew us and 1 helicopter. They wanted to shoot, but we shot them first.
All the same, if there are questions over the capabilities and the will of the Libyan military, the same can perhaps be said of Gaddafi's opponents. While there's no shortage of revolutionary zeal on the front line, the advance towards Sirte appears extremely badly organised. It appears voices are starting to emerge from Benghazi too, questioning military tactics. There's also the separate issue of whether civilian supporters of Gaddafi in places like Sirte or Tripoli are prepared to arm themselves against a rebel advance, and if so, what that would mean for either side's moral authority. If you add it all together, it suggests a conflict which could destroy this country. Lawrence Lee, AlJazeera.
Tariq Youssef back with us now from the Dubai School of Government, as he's been all morning. What Lawrence Lee was saying in his report there, the essence is that who's got the upper hand, who's got the will, who's got the firepower, and at the moment it's not exactly even, but no one's really jumping up and saying we're 100% taking this in control, are they?
No one. Things have slowed down quite dramatically, and it appears that Gaddafi today is trying to regain some of the cities that were captured, some of the villages, towns, important strategic positions that were captured by the rebels in the last few days. In particular, Ras Lanuf. There's a concerted effort to recapture Ras Lanuf, partly because it's an important strategic oil installation. Export terminal, refined products, things that matter possibly for the war effort. Refined products, gasoline, diesel, all the things that he would need to keep the armor, to keep the vehicles, and to be able to cover the large distances in the east and west.
Shouldn't, when we talk about control being, places being captured and recaptured and taken back, shouldn't the army be able to hold these places?
You would think, but I think most assessments of Libya's military readiness in terms of the regular army is extremely lukewarm, if not outright questioning of its both discipline, preparedness. One could go back 20 years ago when Libya invaded Chad and failed miserably to capture any land or to hold it. And Libya's military forces were defeated rather miserably in that kind of setting of guerrilla warfare, hit-and-run tactics. I'm of the mind, personally, that the Libyan military forces, the organized military forces under this regime, are a non-professional, undisciplined forces designed to quell public unrest as opposed to fight with a command and control structure.
Let's talk about the man himself, shall we? Colonel Gaddafi, who's been out again. We've seen the pictures, the latest pictures. He just seems to make these brief, fleeting appearances, waves to the crowd. Is it anything more than show, do you think?
I'm here. I'm still in charge. I can still make decisions. My appearance matters, and it's also a message for the outside world, especially for countries that whose support for the rebellion might be still lukewarm or questionable. Psychological warfare, important part of any standoff, and where battlefield outcomes are contestable at any given moment. So he's going to do this. I think he'll do it tonight again. He'll do it tomorrow. It's important for him to show to his supporters that he's still around.
And he is. There he was. Thank you, Tariq Yusuf. Appreciate that. We'll talk to you again next hour. Thank you. Well, this unrest in Libya is causing new fears for the global economy. 3 weeks ago, if you remember the brief lull between Egypt and Libya's uprisings, US crude oil was priced at $85 a barrel. Now, more than 106, a 2.5-year high. Over the same time period, Brent crude rose from $103 to $117 a barrel. The result is that the markets don't like it. Asian trading, we saw the Nikkei in Tokyo down more than 2% on Monday. Australia's benchmark ASX 200 down by about 1%. Let's see what's happening in Europe. David Buick's live in London for a senior market analyst at BGC Partners. How has Europe opened, David?
Slightly off its levels of closing on Friday, and a very good morning to you. Yes, the DAX and the CAC are down about 0.5% and the FTSE about 0.2%. The FTSE is behaving slightly better than the other two because of the preponderance of obviously oil stocks and mining stocks, which are really holding their own. But for the question of contagion, Libya, the problems there speak for themselves. But obviously we have concern that there seems to be a little bit of civil unrest in Riyadh, and also Yemen seems to have entered the fray. If we could get this to come back on the bridle, for want of a better expression, it might just be possible that we would see oil down back to about $85 a barrel. Equities are holding their own because people are very reluctant to sell them, because the alternate asset classes, such as bonds, with the threat of higher interest rates all around the world, are a deeply unattractive alternative. We've also been getting very good corporate earnings during the course of the first quarter and the fourth quarter of last year, and companies are beginning to pay very decent dividends. Okay. The recovery is on the way, and we don't need a setback like this.
Right, so it is that there is actually some strength in the other sectors, and yes, there may be a sort of a sharp oil shock with what's going on, but in theory the market should be able to rebound from that.
Well, if we hadn't had this little local difficulty out in the Middle East, I suspect that we would see European indices probably 250 points better than they are at the moment. And I have little doubt that the Dow